The elders say that every village has its mystery, and for Umuaka, it wore the face of a man called Ozuoma. Each dawn, before the first cock's crow, his shadow appeared, long and thin, stretching across the red earth like a wandering curse. He walked barefoot, his hair wild like forest vines, his skin smeared with ashes that glimmered faintly under the morning sun. He spoke to no one, yet the air seemed to answer him. When he passed through the market road, even the leaves stilled. The harmattan breeze, playful a moment before, turned heavy and silent. The children ran at the sight of him. Women crossed their arms and muttered prayers. Men spat on the ground 3 times to drive away bad spirits. They called him Ozuoma the madman, but some whispered other names in the dark. The wandering curse, the man who never sleeps, or the spirit that forgot its home. No one knew where he came from. Some said he was once a mighty hunter who lost his mind after seeing what no mortal eye should see. Others swore he was an outcast spirit punished by the gods to roam among men. But one thing everyone agreed on: strange signs followed him. The wind bent around him like a bow. Birds avoided flying above him. Rain never fell where he lay. If Ozuoma slept beneath a tree, that tree would dry up within days. If he rested near the river, the fish would vanish. Yet every morning he hummed softly, a tune so haunting that even the elders felt their bones chill when they heard it. He is not just mad, they said. He carries something ancient. Still, life in Umuaka went on. Markets opened, drums echoed, children played. But whenever Ozuoma's footsteps echoed through the dusty path, all laughter died. Mothers would pull their children close, whispering, "Don't look at him, lest madness find you too." But far from their fear, there was one who saw differently, a young maiden named Nena, whose heart was too tender for fear and too curious for silence. Every morning from her mother's hut, she watched him from afar, the way he stopped to stare at the sunrise, as if speaking to it, the way he traced symbols in the dirt, as if writing messages for unseen eyes. Her grandmother, Mama Ugo, had warned her countless times. "Do not pity what the gods have abandoned, child. The spirits banish for a reason." But Nena always wondered, what if the gods were wrong? She noticed that Ozuoma never begged for food. He would take fallen fruits and thank the trees. When children threw stones, he didn't fight back. He only smiled sadly and murmured words no one understood. There was something behind that madness, something that pulled at her soul like a song she had heard before, but couldn't remember. Then came one morning when the sky looked strange, pale red, like fire hiding behind clouds. The village dogs barked endlessly. Birds gathered on rooftops, restless, watching the path that led into the heart of Umuaka. Ozuoma was coming again. Only this time, he wasn't humming. He was silent. His eyes were fixed ahead, clear, almost human. As he walked past the market road, a calabash broke on its own. Palm oil spilled into the sand and formed a perfect circle. The women froze. The drummers stopped. Even the smoke from cooking fires hung still, refusing to rise. The air around him shimmered faintly like heat, but colder. And though no one dared to say it out loud, they all felt it. Something unseen had followed Ozuoma into the village that morning. Something that had been waiting. And somewhere behind her stall of palm oil, Nena felt her heart skip. She didn't know why, but she knew the winds of Umuaka had changed forever. When the villagers spoke of beauty, they mentioned Nena, the daughter of a humble palm oil trader, and the granddaughter of old Mama Ugo, the village's oldest storyteller.
But what made Nena special was not her face or her voice. It was the light in her heart, a light that saw good where others saw only fear. From childhood, she was drawn to the strange and the quiet, to the forgotten corners of Umuaka, where tales whispered through the wind. While other girls laughed and gossiped, Nena sat by the old stream, tracing ripples on the water and asking questions no one dared to answer. So when Ozuwoma the madman wandered through the village, it was Nena who lingered to watch him, not with disgust, but with wonder. She noticed how his steps never left prints, how the birds around him fled but returned once he was gone, how even the sun seemed to dim slightly when he passed. One morning, she followed him from afar, through the market, past the fields, up to the lonely udala tree that stood at the edge of the forest. There, Ozuwoma sat, humming his broken tune, drawing circles and strange marks on the earth with his finger. Nena crouched behind a bush watching. He spoke softly, as though to someone unseen. She caught a few words. They have forgotten the old ways. The rivers no longer here. Then suddenly he turned and looked straight at her hiding place. Her heart froze. His eyes were not wild this time. They were calm, almost knowing. And though he said nothing, Nena felt as if he had spoken to her spirit directly. She ran home breathless, confused. That night, she told her grandmother what happened. Mama Ugo's wrinkled hands trembled as she listened. Then she spoke in a low, warning voice. "Child, never touch what the gods have rejected. There are men who walk this earth but belong elsewhere. Madness is the cloak the spirits wear when they wish to be unseen." But Nena couldn't forget his eyes. They haunted her dreams, not with fear, but with mystery. Days turned to weeks. Everywhere she went, she thought of him, the man who sang to the air, who never ate, who made the wind obey. Something inside her whispered that his madness was not madness at all, but a veil hiding a forgotten truth. She began leaving small portions of food near the udala tree, roasted yam, palm wine, and kola nuts. Gifts she never saw him take, yet they always disappeared by morning. One evening, as the sun bled gold over Umuaka, Nena walked again to the edge of the forest. The air was still, the trees whispering softly. And then she heard it. His voice, deeper now, clearer, calling her name. Nena. The sound carried through the trees like a wind that knew her soul. She froze, torn between fear and the strange pull inside her chest. That was the moment she realized her life had stepped beyond the reach of the ordinary, into the realm of the unseen. And far above, the clouds gathered again, gray and heavy, as if the heavens themselves were watching what would unfold next. The drums of Umuaka beat louder that day than they had in many moons. It was the festival of the harvest, when the people thanked the gods for rain and abundance, though the last rains had been thin and reluctant. The square was alive with colors. Women danced with calabashes on their heads, children chased goats, and men boasted of their new yams. Even the air smelled sweet with roasted corn and palm wine. But amid all that joy, a shadow walked slowly into the light. Ozuwoma the madman. He moved like smoke, quietly, without invitation. His eyes seemed distant, as though he was listening to something beyond what mortals could hear. At first, no one noticed him, but soon a child's scream cut through the drumbeats. Mama, the madman! Heads turned, laughter ceased. And then, as if the festival needed a villain to complete its joy, the crowd began to taunt. Go away, cursed one, spirit without rest. May your madness not enter our feast. Children picked up pebbles, flinging them toward him. The first stone struck his shoulder. Then another hit his head. Ozuoma didn't cry out. He simply looked down at the dust, his body trembling. Not from pain, but from something deeper. Something that felt like sorrow.
The crowd laughed louder. To them, it was sport. But to one person, Nina, it was unbearable. From the edge of the market, she saw him stumble. Blood trickled from his forehead, tracing a thin red line down his cheek. Her heart clenched. Without thinking, she dropped her basket of yams and pushed through the crowd. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. "Have you no shame? He's still a man." The laughter died, replaced by murmurs. No maiden of Umuaka had ever dared defend Ozuoma. "Leave him, Nana," her mother's voice cried. But she didn't stop. She knelt beside the madman, her shadow falling over his wound. Up close, she saw the pain in his eyes, but also something strange, something ancient. A calmness that didn't belong to a madman. Nina took her water gourd and poured gently over the wound. He flinched at first, then met her gaze. Their eyes locked, and in that instant, the world seemed to hold its breath. The wind stopped blowing, the drums fell silent. Even the fires around the market bent low, their flames swaying toward them. Ozuoma's lips parted as if to speak, but before he could, thunder cracked across the sky. A sound so loud that it shook the ground beneath them. Dark clouds gathered, spinning in circles above the village like a crown of smoke. The people screamed and scattered. "She has touched the cursed one," they shouted. "She has joined him. The madness will spread." Nina tried to stand, but her body felt heavy, her feet rooted to the earth. Ozuoma reached for her trembling hand, not to harm, but to steady her. And when their hands met fully, a strange light shimmered between them. Faint at first, then bright, like molten gold. The sky answered with another rumble. Palm trees bent, though there was no wind. Goats bleated, birds fled, and the market mats lifted into the air. The villagers ran to the shrine, calling for the elders. Some fell to their knees, crying that the gods had awakened in anger. But Nina and Ozuoma stood frozen at the center of it all, one bleeding, one glowing. When the thunder ceased and the clouds began to fade, Ozuoma was gone. Only his footprints remained in the dust, and Nina, kneeling, clutching the torn cloth soaked in his blood and ashes. The crowd stared from afar, afraid to come near. Mama Ugo's trembling voice broke the silence. "The girl has crossed the boundary between man and spirit. The gods have seen." From that moment, the festival was forgotten, and by evening, whispers filled Umuaka, whispers that the maiden had been chosen or cursed by forces no one dared to name. The next morning, when the sun rose over the hills, it shone red, not gold, and the river that fed Umuaka began to fall silent, its water shrinking as though drawn away by invisible hands. The curse had begun. That night, Umuaka did not sleep. The wind howled like a mourning spirit, and the villagers whispered of what they had seen at the festival, how the sky darkened, how thunder answered the touch of a maiden and a madman. Some said Ozuoma had vanished into thin air. Others swore they saw him rise into the clouds like smoke from sacred fire. But in one corner of the village, a young maiden tossed restlessly on her mat. Nina could not close her eyes without seeing that golden light the moment their hands met. It replayed again and again until the darkness around her began to melt away. In her dream, she stood before a shining river, clear as crystal and alive with light. The water glowed in waves, and from its depths came a deep voice, calm, ancient, and powerful. Nina. Her name echoed through the mist. She looked around, trembling. Who are you?
The river rippled, and the reflection that rose upon its surface was not hers. It was Ozuama, no longer ragged or mad, but clothed in white, radiant as dawn. "The boundary has been broken," he said softly. "The gods are awake again." Before she could speak, the river turned red like blood, and thunder roared in the heavens. She woke with a scream. Sweat drenched her face, and her grandmother, Mama Ugu, rushed in holding a clay lamp. "What is it, child?" Nana gasped, clutching her chest. "The river! I saw it shining. Then it turned red. He was there, Mama. Ozuama was there." Mama Ugu's face went pale. She made the sign of protection with her fingers. "Hush, Nana. Don't speak his name again in this house." But it was too late. Outside, a strange silence had settled over the night. And when dawn came, the real river, the lifeblood of Umuaka, had begun to shrink. What was once a proud singing stream was now a sluggish path of mud and dying fish. By midday, the crops near the bank had begun to wither. Women carrying water returned home empty-handed, their faces dark with worry. The elders gathered beneath the great iroko tree, their cowries clattering in fear. "This has never happened," said one, "not even during the 7-year drought of old." "It began after the festival," whispered another, "after the girl touched him." Mama Ugu stood at the edge of the circle, her eyes sunken. "I warned her," she said softly, "but the child's heart was too open." The oldest of the elders, as a mba, struck his staff on the earth. "We must consult the oracle of the hill. The gods must speak." By sunset, a group of men climbed to the sacred cave where the oracle's voice was said to dwell. They carried kola nuts, white fowl, and palm oil for sacrifice. When they returned at dawn, their faces were pale with terror. They brought a single message from the oracle. "A sacred boundary has been broken. The maiden has touched the spirit of the forgotten one. Until balance is restored, the river shall die and the land with it." The news spread through Umuaka like wildfire. Children were forbidden to play near Nana's home. Men crossed to the other side of the path when she passed. Women whispered, "She carries the mark of the spirit." Nana withdrew into silence, her eyes hollow with sleepless nights. She could still hear the river's voice in her dreams calling her, soft at first, then louder each night. "Come to me, Nina. Come where the world of men meets the world of spirits." Even Mama Ugu grew frightened. One evening, she held Nina's hand and said through tears, "Child, the gods do not forget their debts. Whatever Ozuama was, you have awakened it. Now you must find what he left behind before Umuaka turns to dust." As the moon rolls red again over the dying river, Nina knew one truth deep in her heart. The madman was not mad at all. And if she did not follow the voice calling her name, The whole village would pay the price for her compassion. The journey to the sacred forest. The night before Nina's exile, the moon rose red, a color the villagers feared. Mothers gathered their children indoors, doors were sealed with palm crosses, and drums of mourning echoed through Umuaka. At dawn, Nina stood at the village square, a small bag on her back, her eyes swollen from tears. The elders surrounded her, their faces hard as carved wood. "Leave before the sun touches the hills," said Elder Nokeji, his staff butting the earth. "Until the gods forgive, you must not return." Nina's grandmother, trembling, pressed a small calabash of cola in her hand. "May the spirits guide you, my child," she whispered, tears streaking her wrinkled cheeks. "Do not fear what you see. The forest knows who walks in truth." And so, barefoot and alone, Nina walked toward Alanta Forest, a place the people called the belly of the earth. No birds sang there, no hunter dared enter. They said the forest swallowed those who disturbed its peace. As she stepped into the shadows, the air grew colder. The trees whispered in tongues she couldn't understand. Strange lights flickered between the roots, and unseen footsteps followed every move. Her heart pounded, but she remembered her grandmother's words, "The forest knows who walks in truth." Hours passed until night came again. Exhausted, she collapsed beside a fallen tree and prayed softly. "Spirits of the forest," she said, "I meant no harm. I only showed kindness to one in pain. If I have offended the heavens, forgive me." A rustle came from the darkness. Nina looked up and froze. From behind the mist stepped Ozuoma, the madman. But this time, he was different. His ash-covered skin was clean. His tangled hair flowed like black silk, and his eyes glowed like embers in a dying fire. "Ozuoma?" she whispered. He smiled gently. "That name is no longer mine." His voice was deep and calm, echoing through the forest like wind in a cave. "You have broken my chains, Maiden of Light." She took a step back, trembling. "Who are you?" "I am Ezemuo, spirit of judgment, once a guardian of balance between the world of men and the world of spirits." He looked upward, and the forest trembled slightly, as if bowing to his presence. "Long ago, pride led me to punish the innocent and spare the guilty. For this, the gods stripped me of my form and cast me among men, cursed to madness until compassion found me." Her eyes widened. "So when you touched me," he said softly, "you ended my suffering, but you also awakened the ancient balance. For every spirit freed, a debt must be paid." Her heart raced. "What debt?" He looked at her sadly. "The river's life was tied to my curse. When you lifted it, its spirit left the earth. Now, unless the balance is restored, your village will wither, and the forest will consume it." Tears filled her eyes. "Then tell me what I must do. I'll do anything." Ezemul smiled faintly. "You are brave. That is why you were chosen." He extended his hand, and as she touched it, a brilliant light surged around them. The forest cleared to reveal a hidden path glowing with silver dust. "You must journey to the Well of Echoes," he said. There lies the heart of life. Only the pure in spirit can call back the river spirit. But beware, shadows will test your soul. Fear not the dark, for it is only the light turned away. As his voice faded, fireflies rose like sparks, forming ancient symbols in the air. Nena stood there, filled with awe and fear. She turned toward the glowing path, her resolve firm. The forest seemed alive now, not an enemy, but a guide. Behind her, Ezemul's voice echoed one last time. The fate of Umuaka lies in your hands, maiden of light. Walk the path of courage, and you shall awaken the river once more. And with that, he vanished into the mist, leaving Nena alone beneath a trembling moon.
Stepping into destiny's mouth. The test of the river god. The silver path carried Nenena through the forest like a whisper of fate. Each step pulsed with ancient power until she reached a clearing where the earth opened into a deep, glowing pool, the well of echoes. The air was thick with mist and the scent of wet earth. The sound of distant waves echoed, though no sea was near. She knelt beside the water, trembling. "O spirit of the river," she called, "hear me. I come in peace, for the sake of my people." The surface rippled, then burst open in a surge of light and thunder. Water rose into the sky, forming the shape of a towering being, half man, half current, his eyes gleaming like moonlight on restless waves. Around him, lightning danced through the trees, splitting branches like brittle bones. "I am Ujamari, keeper of the waters," the voice boomed, deep and endless. "Why does a mortal child summon me?" Nenena's knees gave way beneath her, yet she forced herself to speak. "Great River Father, forgive us. My people have forgotten the old ways, yes, but they are only lost, not faithless. I beg you to bring life back to the land." The god's laughter rolled like thunder. "Your people mocked the mad spirit who walked among them. They spat on holiness disguised in rags. Why should I restore what they scorned?" Rain began to fall, hot and heavy, yet the pool at her feet boiled like fire. Nenena raised her face, drenched and shivering. "Because they are human," she cried. "They err, they forget, but they still love, still hope. Even in fear there is room for redemption." For a moment, the god was silent. Then his form shifted, waves rising higher, a storm building around them. "You speak of redemption, yet know nothing of sacrifice." Lightning struck a tree beside her, splitting it in two. Still, Nenema did not move. Her heart pounded, but her spirit stood firm. "Then teach me, River Father. If sacrifice is what it takes, I will offer it." Ujemari's gaze softened, though his voice remained grave. "The river flows by the balance of purity. To restore it, a pure soul must bind itself to the current, to dwell forever between the world of men and the world of spirits. Will you surrender your freedom, your laughter, your name, for those who cast you away?" Tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. She looked at her reflection, flickering beneath the waves, and saw her grandmother's face, her village, the children who once ran by the stream. "Yes," she whispered, "let my life be the river's life.
Let my heart beat where the water flows. But God extended his hand, and a blinding light burst through the forest. The dried river far away roared to life again, filling its banks with singing water. Crops drank deeply, and the people of Umuaka fell to their knees in awe. But Nanena was gone. Only her voice remained, carried by the rushing stream. Gentle, eternal. When you drink from the river, remember the heart that chose to flow forever. And from that day, the river of Umuaka never dried again. They called it Nanena's stream, sacred and alive, for in every ripple her spirit watched, protecting those who once feared what they could not understand. At dawn, Umuaka awoke to a sound they had not heard in many moons, the song of the river. It began softly, a murmur beneath the earth, then swelled into a jubilant roar as clear water rushed through the once dry riverbed. Birds filled the skies again, their wings glinting in sunlight that had long refused to bless the land. Women ran from their huts clutching calabashes, farmers dropped their hoes and fell to their knees in disbelief. The children, who once mocked the madman, now danced barefoot by the water's edge, laughing as if the world had been reborn. The river lives again. The curse is lifted. But amid the joy, one voice trembled with sorrow. Nanena's grandmother. She pushed through the crowd, her eyes scanning the banks, calling, "Nanena, my child, where are you?"